the opportunity to respond. I first want to say, in the interest of full disclosure, I'm a Democrat. I'm not affiliated with any party. I'm not paid by Gary Peters. I'm here on my own behalf. So I just want to tell you that up front. But I do believe that Mr. Lennox saying that he is not political is just a blatant lie. The Michigan Republican Party, Saul Newses, has constructed a 7-foot milk carton that they've been traipsing around and holding press conferences talking about this issue. I did a little bit of research. I didn't plan on being here this morning. That's why I'm dressed casually, but I read about it this hearing today, and I was compelled to come. And there is another group, actually. This is a pretty controversial issue, Students Against Gary Peters. And I found a blog entry this morning, and it's actually written by a student that actually is taking Mr. Peters' class, which Mr. Lennox is not. And I just want to read a couple paragraphs from it if I could. I don't know the student's name. I hadn't had time to do the research on this. And these couple paragraphs say, first I must provide full disclosure. I am in Gary Peters' PSC 300 class. I signed up for it unknowing of the situation surrounding it, but enjoyed class nonetheless. My status as student in his class may be valuable in evaluating the student against Gary Peters' claims. The main contention seems to be that by working for as a state employee and running for Congress simultaneously, he has a conflict of interest. Don't state employees such as House members and Senate members run for their offices. And I should add, too, that all three of our presidential candidates this year are currently employed on the U.S. payroll, and they're running for Congress, or for the presidency. So I just want to make that distinction. It's not unusual for political candidates to be running for office and doing other things, as I'm sure all of you do when you run for re-election. He is providing a service for CMU and its students while separately running for a public position. Can't someone have a job and run for public office? Not everyone is independently wealthy enough to fund a campaign and support one's family. Were his campaign to disallow him from completing his teaching positions adequately, I would ask for him to step down as well, but it hasn't, so I won't. And I should add, too, I did bring, and I would give you these documents for your perusal to put into the record. I did print out a page from the CMU budget, and the budget item for the Griffin Endowment is 0. So it is not a taxpayer-funded position. It's funded by a private endowment. And the email or the blog post that I found also addresses that in another paragraph I'd like to read. Students Against Gary Peters claim that Peters is necessarily biased and will jeopardize a healthy classroom atmosphere. This is where my attendance in class proves valuable. I can attest that Peters is not one to construct a biased classroom, nor let his internal bias subconsciously escape him. I have all too often had professors with clear, unashamed biases in class. Peters is not one of these professors. His lectures and exercises are entrenched in honest debate. I honestly have trouble determining his positions on any issue. Their contention that he could be biased really has no bearing on the discussion because he is not biased and there is no cause for concern. So the Students Against Gary Peters, while they may have made a lot of noise about this issue, I feel that their position is unjustified. This is a position that is funded completely by a private endowment, and I would ask that you not take any action. I have called personally every single member of the Board of Trustees of Central Michigan University. They have had no complaints to them about Gary Peters teaching this class, and I think Mr. Peters he served our state ably and capably, and hopefully in November he will be elected to a position of congressman from the 9th District, from which I come, by the way. So I'd be willing to answer any questions you have.
I just want to say to both of you, thanks for bringing this to our attention. I am a Democrat, certified terms in Congress. Since Mr. Lennox, I just say, I know that you're passionate, obviously, about this issue. And I know that I followed it from the media. I'm not very close to the situation. Central Michigan University is not in my Senate district, but there are chairmans, I think. And where's Alan? I'm sorry, Senator Alan Props, excuse me. And I guess when I did serve in Congress, I know there were a number of people in both Congress, including Speaker Newt Gingrich and Majority Floor Leader Dick Armey, who were university professors at the time they were elected to Congress. One of the issues that always comes up particularly with the Hatch Act and stuff, is that our universities in Michigan, I think under the Michigan Constitution, can't speak to other states, but we try to allow them as much autonomy as possible so that the state of Michigan, whether it's Democratic controlled or Republican controlled legislature, currently we have a Democratic House, Republican Senate, as you probably are aware of. But for several years we had Democratic House and Senate, Republican House and Senate. And so I think the intent of the framers of our Michigan Constitution back in 1962 was to try to put as much, put in place a little barrier from the state government micromanaging the operations of the universities. But I can understand that if you are a Republican activist or passionate, about Mr. Peters, I can understand where you're coming from. And I know both. I know Representative Nolenberg, served with him for 10 years, and he's a real gentleman, fine congressman. I served briefly in state government with Senator Peters. He was a state senator when I was at the federal level. But I would just say, if we could ratchet down the motions a little bit, maybe if you were to perhaps research some of the members of Congress and their backgrounds in terms of how many were university professors at the time they were elected to the U.S. House, it'd probably be a substantial number. I'm not sure how many that would be, but they're in both caucuses, and I don't recall down in Washington that ever being an issue on their being seated or whatever. And as I say, I haven't followed former Senator Peters' activities on the campus as a professor, so I can't speak to that. But I understand it's obvious you feel passionate about this issue, and I think it's gracious of you to come and speak on behalf of Mr. Peters. But I don't know what our committee could actually do. We could probably consult Ellen or the Senate Fiscal Agency to see if we would want to begin the process of holding universities accountable for hiring Republican or Democratic professors. But traditionally, it's been in an academic setting that you have a lot of both ideas, and you let the students sort out what makes sense, and obviously, you give a lot of thought to politics in general and its impact on our lives personally. And some are liberal, some are moderate, some are conservative, and I think we might be going down a dangerous path if we start saying, we should, if we have a Democratic legislature, we should purge Republican professors from universities or vice versa. And I'm not saying that's what you're doing. I don't know enough of the facts about the cases, but I can't say that a number of people, Vern Ehlers, Congressman Vern Ehlers was a physicist at Calvin College who was elected to Congress and has done a very good job. Also a good friend, served on the subcommittee with him. I was a state senator when I was elected to Congress. Congressman Camp was a state representative when he was elected. It's hard, unless you're independently wealthy, to be unemployed and then seek another office. But it's always a challenge to do both and to perform diligent service on behalf of the office you're already elected to if you're seeking another office. And as the gentleman pointed out, we have 3 U.S. senators, and maybe none of them should be considered to be elected. Maybe someone should be appointed, perhaps. But they're all U.S. senators. They're all missing a lot of votes, a lot of time. They're all continuing to draw their pay while they're campaigning for different office, presidency. So I just throw that out for thought. And I would, it's probably kind of a thorny issue. But thanks for appearing before us and sharing your concerns.
Any other questions? Thank you for being here today. I have no further business to come before this committee this time, so we are adjourned.